Welcome to the IDP Army Offensive Points crossover episode. We got Jordan Rains in the house, and of course, Billy Mansell and myself, Josh Hall. As you hear, you're not hearing Joe's awesome intros, and it's not going to be that kind of intro. So my apologies. Keep listening. I think the podcast gets better as it goes on. We got camp news in full swing. We have real news even in swing. We're losing people already, which is sad days. But here we are in the full swing of fantasy football. We are in August. The Hall of Fame game is tomorrow or today or yesterday, depending on when you're listening. We got football, ladies and gentlemen. How are we feeling?
Feeling good, man. The weather is hot and the takes are only going to get hotter from here, gentlemen. This is the season for hot takes and the season for camp news. So let's talk a little smidge of camp news. Primarily the injury front, and we'll just start right with the big injury. Well, big. I don't want to hate on Tim Patrick like that.
It's a big injury.
It's a big fancy football injury, I think. And that's Tim Patrick. Tore his ACL in camp, out for the season. Guys, does this change the Broncos at all, in your opinion?
Number one, this is a big injury. I know Tim Patrick isn't the sexiest name in the world, but this man has been putting in work. He is the Greg Ward of the Denver Broncos. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Eagles today. Not as much as you'd think, but it will come up. It will come up because I will make sure that it happens.
That connection is insane.
I think this affects the Denver Broncos in a positive way, honestly, at least for
now. How is that possible?
For the fantasy football sake of the Denver Broncos, you're going to have more receptions around. Obviously, no one wants Tim Patrick injured, but Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are going to immediately benefit from it. So in the fantasy football world, it does make a difference, but in the football world, we're not happy about it.
Yeah, I don't have a strong take. I'm kind of out on Denver's wide receivers anyway. Tim Patrick was kind of the least of those for fantasy. Sucks, but we know he got paid well a year or two ago. It was an ACL tear, right? So, I mean, he should recover. And be back, so that's a good thing to hear, and just hopefully he has a good rehab, and the Broncos have a half decent season. That'd be nice for them.
Hopefully so. I feel like this does not change Cortland Sutton, does not change Jerry Jeudy. I think slightly bumps Javonte and Melvin Gordon a little bit, and Albert O maybe a little bit bump for him as well. But overall.
Not that we want to burn up the whole time talking about the Broncos, but does Hamler or someone else slot in there?
You can pick up Hamler, but I think it's a classic mistake if you pick up Hamler because I think you're going to think he's going to be heavily involved now because Tim Patrick's going to – but I think it's going to just get spread out through the other guys and mainly some of those lesser options than them. So,
especially in redraft, don't go out and get Hamler. Just leave him on the waivers, see what happens.
100%. Like
as he says with his shirt. We're not even on video yet.
We're not on video yet, which is funny. Anywho, on to Cowboys. They lost James Washington to an ACL tear. Well, I don't think it was an ACL tear.
It was a broken foot.
Yeah, it was like a something injury, like a Liz Frank injury. I don't know, some kind of foot injury because he landed wrong. It was actually, funnily enough, it was on a play where Trayvon Diggs looked like he got burnt. The video kind of makes that play look a little bit worse than it actually was, but James Washington ends up hurting himself on that one. I think he was only going to be the wide receiver 3 anyway, but I mean, guys, does this boost anybody else on the team up in your opinion?
I think if anything, it hurts the Dallas Cowboys a lot, because they're going to be missing Michael Gallup for a potential few games. So it should boost CeeDee Lamb, but at the same time, that's pretty much the only receiver. And then Jalen Tolbert's first game as a rookie probably won't be the best. So, I mean, he could come out and just have a hot rookie start, but personally, I'm thinking that this is going to hurt the Cowboys with their already shallow wide receiver core.
Yeah, I agree. I think the person who, gets hit the most is Dak. I do still believe Dak is a great pick this year. He's been a great quarterback, finishing, I believe like in the top 10 in points per game, top 6 pretty regularly the last few years, being drafted as QB 11 right now. It hurts him, but we've seen good quarterbacks overcome. CeeDee Lamb did have a bit of a breakout last year, hence his current ADP. If anything, we know CeeDee Lamb's going to get a lot of targets now. But again, I think it might hurt the upside of, or the potential upside of, what Dak Prescott could have put forth this year.
I agree. I just think it's going to start him off slow, which is the worst part because he's already missing Gallup. Now he's missing James Washington. Yeah, these aren't big names, but together they form a Amari Cooper basically. So they're basically without Amari Cooper and will be actually feeling it without the fill-ins.
I can agree with that. All right. Just so the podcast audience out there knows, there isn't any Deshaun Watson news that we know of. We know that we're right now, as we're recording, know that the league appealed the suspension that was given out, the 6 games. We do not know the conclusion of that, so we're not going to discuss it further. We'll talk about it next week, but we'll just be speculating right now. And by the time you're listening to this, there'll probably be a ruling, and you will know, and we won't have known it at this point. So, just going to touch on that next week. That's why we're not talking about it. It's not that because we missed it. We don't have the full story yet. So, just want to cover that before we get into the rest of this podcast. And so, let's just move on to the main event. We were talking about.
Can I jump in really quick? I have a couple of notes. They're a few days old from training camp, but I just want to throw them in here.
Sure.
One, I saw that Von Miller apparently is looking really good at training camp. I've been bumping him up a little bit in my rankings. Still, I think he's 33 years old. He signed for a couple of years, had like 19 tackles for a loss last year, played all the games that you wanted to see him play, played for 2 teams, was still productive. So I moved him up my rankings. Roquan Smith, I believe he's still on the PUP, but it's not really an actual injury. I think that's because of a contract situation we're working on. I listened to Matt Eberflus, I believe, is their new coach. Is that his name right? Matt Eberflus. He did a press conference, and he was talking about that and basically said he's on the PUP because he doesn't want to play because he wants a new contract. But they're working on it. He said he's in the building. He's studying. He's doing everything except for that. So that's good. Everything about Carl Lawson coming out is just all hype. We're right back to where we were. He's a freak. Like the actual quote from head coach, I can't think of his name right now, was he's a freak. So that's how he's been tearing up camp for the Jets. Robert Quinn also in the building for the Bears, which is good. Second most sacks in the league last year. And then Kevin Byard. A lot of good things coming out of camp about Kevin Byard. Don't sleep on him as a top-end defensive back. You can get as a defensive back too. So just wanted to update you. That's my little version of camp news right there. So sorry, Billy.
I forgot to mention as well, Anthony Barr signed with the Cowboys. The Cowboys were supposedly in the talks to maybe trade for Deion Jones from Atlanta. Since he is not going to play for Atlanta, it looks like this season, they're going to have to find a new trade partner now because it appears as if that's not going to happen. So Anthony Barr is in the building. I don't know which one of the linebackers this affects mainly, but this might mean that Micah Parsons is going to be a defensive end this year. Just maybe a hint.
I love that for Micah Parsons.
Yes.
Also, they were pretty shallow at linebacker, so
they were. If Micah Parsons wasn't going to play linebacker, they really were. So, guess that's what we're looking at there.
All right. Well, what's the main event, Billy? We got a whole thing going on here.
Let's get it.
All right. The main event is sleepers. So we are in August, so the drafts are coming up really quickly. So we're going to give you, I think 7 players that are outside of the top 24 in underdog ADP. What? Okay.
7.
And,
he was doing 7.
Yes. Okay. He was doing 7. My bad. The visual is messing with me, but whatever. We got 7 players. We're going to talk sleepers in this video. There's 24 top 24 players are excluded from this list. It's people outside the top 24 that could potentially finish in the top 5 overall if everything lands right. And we're going to get into that right away. And I'll start us off with Mr. Keenan Allen from the Los Angeles Chargers. So in 2021, he had a career year in receptions, guys. It was the best year he's ever had in terms of reception. So in PPR, obviously, he was a monster and going to look like it this year. So right now he's going at 28 overall, which is just outside that 24. Wide receiver 12. I believe that there is a very good chance that he could end up in not only the top 10, but I think the top 5 as well. He had the second most targets in his career last season, and 4 of the last 5 seasons, he has ended the season with 1,100 yards under his belt. Now, there is a 3 in front of his age now, which scares a lot of people. But as a guy who just turned 30 myself and am not in the same shape as Keenan Allen, I think he's fine. He's going to be fine, and he's got Justin Herbert throwing him the ball. So I think this year, Chargers are going to have to throw a lot. I think they are going to lean a little bit more on the run, possibly. But I think that Justin Herbert is going to clean up a little bit. Accuracy, still a tad bit of an issue with him last year, but I think this year we clean that up. I'm not worried about Josh Palmer being the wide receiver 3 there. Not yet anyway. Mike Williams, as Joe likes to say, is a fraud. I think last season was the best you're going to see from Mike Williams. I think Keenan Allen is probably going to have the second best year of his career this season, and I think that could land him in the top 5. Gentlemen, thoughts?
I was going to say, you're lucky Joe's not here right now because that Mike Williams take was coming hot. Fake, phony. He's not doing anything. It was a contract year. But I want to get to something real quick, and this is a little off topic, but you just tried to trade me Josh Palmer in a league, and I don't appreciate you the day of the podcast. I don't like that. But no, I completely agree. Keenan Allen is a beast. He had 1 year lost to injury. I think people tagged that injury prone to his name. Like, ooh, well, he was injured, about a year and a half lost in his entire career, which is like 9 seasons now, and has done it straight for 5 years. You're not missing out when you're getting Keenan Allen. You're not like, I guess I'll take Keenan Allen. He's kind of got that Cooper Kupp mentality to him. It's like, I guess I'll take Cooper Kupp. Last year, nobody wanted Cooper Kupp. It was just like, sure, whatever, I guess I'll take him. And then they end up being the wide receiver 1. Not saying that's Keenan Allen, but pretty great receiver. And Justin Herbert's only going to get better. I mean, it literally was his second year last year, and he's still learning. So
I like the Allen pick here, outside of the top 24. So he does fit the description that you gave. I will say my guys are maybe don't have quite that much upside, but I still think they're good sleepers. Wide receiver 12, guys going around him, I do definitely like him a lot more than them. And I think it's important, just as much as it is to hit on a guy is to not pick the wrong guys, avoid the grenades that are around him. And you can't really get much safer than Keenan Allen. He wins the way that you want a player to win long, over the long term. That's why he has been so good year over year, playing with in a variety of types of situations. And now he has, a really, really good quarterback in Justin Herbert. So I like the pick here. I don't know if I'd call it a true sleeper, but you could get him as basically a borderline wide receiver 1 with the kind of consistency you're going to get and the upside. I do love it. And the ADP data we're using does come from Underdog. Go check them out. There's a link in the description. If you're watching the video or listening to the podcast, click on that or use the code IDP Army, and you're going to get a $100 first-time deposit match bonus because we sent you over there. So go check them out. They're a great platform to play best ball fantasy. You can play tournaments or you can create leagues with your friends just to get the drafting experience and, win a few bucks here and there. So that's where we're getting all of our ADP information because we live draft on there every day. So you guys should join us over there. But Billy, any final thoughts on Keenan Allen?
No, I guess, I should have framed this list less like sleeper, more like league winner. Like this player going, potentially in the 3rd round of a draft.
I like that. League winner.
Could win you a league. I guess that's how I should have framed the overall video. But at the same time, I think Keenan Allen is a guy who consistently gets slept on, and he always seems to prove, the doubters wrong. And I think this year he's going to probably, I still think he can have his best year of his career, especially in PPR. So,
well, and that's the thing is he hasn't had a monster year yet. He's had very good years consistently, which is phenomenal. So he did have a wide receiver 3 back in 2017, but I think the biggest thing here is the wide receiver falls off a cliff from here. The next, I have another guy in the list. We're not going to get too far into it, but you're going to fall off a cliff and you're going to get those, I don't know how I feel about this quarterback, or I don't know. So I love it. I personally think Keenan Allen can easily hop a couple people up on that list, if not end up being in the top 5, like you said, Bill.
I agree. Okay, let's move on to the second one I have today, and that is Mr. Breece Hall coming at you from the New York Jets. Now, Jets running backs, they're a scary proposition all the way around. If you took Michael Carter last year thinking he was going to be, the potential league winner, It didn't really come to fruition exactly how you thought, but he is currently going 42 overall in underdog ADP, running back 18. And here's the thing, guys. Over the last, I think the thing I read was the last like 10 years, there's always been at least one rookie running back that has weaseled their way into the top 10 of running backs. And I think Breece Hall could be that guy. So I don't have any stats to tell you from last year because he is a rookie, but I do have what he did at Iowa State, and he was what I thought was Le'Veon Bell-esque. And I know Le'Veon Bell played for the Jets, but I think that this is, a young 23-year-old version of Le'Veon Bell that is going to come into the Jets right away. I think their offense is ascending. I think that behind Zach Wilson, they got Garrett Wilson there now. I think that this year is the year that they finally put it all together, and I think Breece Hall is a guy that's going to be able to transcend RB18 and potentially finish as one of the top running backs in the league. Now, I know it's, like I said, the Jets, and they are going to be down a lot, but Breece Hall is very useful in the pass game. He's going to be able to get both of those. Michael Carter is there, but it's more, I think, going to be in a complementary role. I don't think it's going to be a split back situation like Javonte Williams, for example. I know that scared a lot of people last year, and I mean, kind of rightfully so, but I still think Javonte Williams was very usable, and you're not going to have to worry about this year with Breece Hall, because I think he's going to get a bulk of the work, maybe 75% of the work, and Michael Carter might get 25, and that could be something that we see going into the season. And for that reason, I think Breece Hall could be the guy this year that ends up winning you a league.
So I have many things, but just in the sake of keeping this nice and friendly, I'm gonna talk good about my friend with the namesake of me. So Breece Hall, the one good thing about him is I think this is what the Jets are missing. They are missing a bell cow back to shoulder some work while they try to not fall down. Obviously, there is a chance that they get behind and they don't have that chance, but Saquon Barkley came to a pretty rough New York Giants and did a very similar thing and kind of propped them up to where the pass game has a little bit more of a chance. So the good thing about Breece Hall is that he is that bell cow back. Everything is undisputed best running back in this draft. It is unfortunate that he went to the New York Jets, but I think the New York Jets are building something here. They do have some offensive weapons here and a pretty decent defense, which even though it doesn't really look like it, once again, weapons, not full defense. Like, do not draft the New York Jets defense if you're in a team defense league, which, by the way, just real quick plug, stop doing that. It's dumb. Get into IDP. It's way better. These players actually deserve those interceptions and touchdowns and points, not your, I picked the Bills defense because they get plays and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, back to Breece Hall. Sorry, I get off topic pretty easily. But no, I was actually really excited about Breece Hall before he got drafted by the Jets, and it did kill me a little bit. I think I went on a tirade, and I definitely went on a tirade against Breece Hall. But it's because of the Jets. There is offense here. It's just going to take some time, and this man could be the turning point for that team. So,
all right. I think generally speaking, I'm out on Jets running backs just as a matter of principle. But this is not your, it feels like the Jets get hyped up every year, but they really do seem to actually have the talent and leadership around them, and there doesn't really seem to be any sort of huge pitfalls like a terrible coach or an absolutely terrible quarterback per se. So having a solid run game makes a big difference. I was actually just thinking today about Patrick Mahomes, the 50 touchdown season, and I'm like, what was it about that season that made us so confident in Patrick Mahomes? And now we're kind of like, not that we're less confident, but I think his ADP is like the third quarterback off the board. And the thing he hasn't had since that season is a run game. He had Kareem Hunt, who led the league in rushing, who caught a ton of passes for him, who they could hand the ball off to. And what did that do? That allowed Patrick Mahomes to scorch the earth. While he's still been good since then, they've kind of struggled patching things together. So I think that a solid run game can be can be a little bit underrated because the concept of a running back in and of itself being replaceable. But I think the idea of a good run game with a good running back can really elevate everything on the team. So I like him here, especially as a late back end RB2. I think he's a good guy to get some exposure to. an underdog for sure. And I have not been practicing what I'm preaching here, but as I think about it more, you've laid out some good arguments, and I think that I'm going to be taking him in some more drafts going forward.
Yeah, I just to close it out. So last year, Michael Carter, this is via Warren Sharp. Michael Carter, in every game he played last year, 3 games, he had above a 60% snap share. Like every other game, it was a true split backfield. Breece Hall comes in, drafted in the 2nd round of the NFL draft, is going to immediately be able to take over the main share of the workload, with Michael Carter being the guy that complements him for that. I think that should have shown you last year how much they did not trust Michael Carter. And I think this year they're just going to have Breece Hall come in and be that guy right away. And I think that you're going to have a guy that gets the lion's share of the work, and he's going to be able to produce. So Breece Hall, a guy that you're going to want on your team. All right, Josh.
All right. Well, getting into a little bit later, but not quite too late. Not this guy, but we'll get into someone soon. So my first guy is Michael Pittman, and he broke out in a huge way last year. Wentz obviously had his struggles throughout the season, and I'm not going to make this into a Wentz rant because I know Josh talks about the Eagles, but Pittman still ended up with the stat line of 88 catches, 1,100 yards, and 6 touchdowns with shoddy quarterback play. So now he has Matt Ryan at the helm, a man who averaged 4,500 yards per season the last, 3 decades or however long he's been playing. And yes, this is a shadow of Matt Ryan. And we are going to see plenty of Jonathan Taylor, but this is the same guy who threw 110 targets to Pitts last year and 94 to Russell Gage while missing time. And he's been averaging about 400 completion mark and 25 touchdowns for the last decade. So this is including the last 2 years where he had about 3,700 yards throughout. So the Falcons were, one of the worst teams at that point. So last year, though, Pittman had 129 targets with Wentz thrown it to him. And mostly this is due to him being the only real competent receiver on the team. And the closest to him was Zach Pascal with 69. Nice. Who is now on a different team. Needless to say, it's a team that I know very well. So Pittman did only have 6 touchdowns, but with the amount of targets that is open to this team and a upgrade at quarterback, Pittman does have a chance to take that kind of Cooper Kupp-like next step. And yes, before you get, Cooper Kupp, let's talk about it. Well, Cooper Kupp went from 124 to 191 targets last year. Now, I'm not saying that Pittman is this year's Cooper Kupp, but this is about where Cooper Kupp was drafted. And I believe that he easily has a chance to be that wide receiver 1. I'm not saying the wide receiver 1. I'm saying in that wide receiver 1 category. Pittman does have a couple inches and a slight advantage on Cooper Kupp's 40 time. And he also kind of has that same MO as Kupp had last year. So with a veteran coming in, a veteran quarterback coming in to the teams in hope of a Super Bowl late in his career, getting him at wide receiver 13 in the 3rd or 4th round, in my opinion, is an absolute steal. This is right before the wide receivers fall off to the Deontay Johnsons, the weird quarterback. I don't know how I feel about it. Well, Pittman's not that guy, even with Matt Ryan. This man gets no recognition right now because of his namesake. Nobody thinks of Pittman as a sexy name right now. And I personally think you're going to be kicking yourself if you don't grab him. All he is missing right now is going to breakfast with Matt Ryan. And I don't know. We won't find that out till week 1. So what are you guys thinking about?
Well, before I let Jordan just completely demolish Michael Pittman, because I know that he's just ready. He's got a bulldozer ready. I think you're right. I think Michael Pittman is going to get most of the targets for Indy this year. I mean, they don't really have anybody else on that roster to threaten him for targets. No tight end. I mean, you could argue Jonathan Taylor, sure, if you want to say that he's going to get targets, but not enough to do anything close to what Michael Pittman's going to get. Alec Pierce has looked pretty good, but I still think he's a red zone target for as a rookie there. I'm just not convinced by anyone else on that roster that like Michael Pittman's not going to get the bulk of the work. And we've seen Matt Ryan in the past when he's got one receiver to focus on for the entire year, he can make magic happen. Now, do I think Michael Pittman is Julio Jones? Hell no. Do I think he's Calvin Ridley? Maybe eventually, but not really. Michael Pittman could, this year with Matt Ryan could prove useful. And I think that you are correct. He is going outside of where he should right now. I think where he could end up by the end of the season exactly fits the bill of what we're talking right here. He could win you a league. That is definite. All right, Jordan. I held you off long enough.
All right. So he's going at the 28.4 pick, wide receiver 13. He's the first wide receiver 2 off the board. Michael Pittman played 17 games last year and barely squeaked over 1,000 yards. I think he had like 1,062 yards. Okay. This guy's played in 30 games in his career. So we have a pretty decent sample size. 25 of them he's been a starter. And in that time, he's only had 3 games with over 100 receiving yards and only 1 game with multiple touchdowns. Okay. And only 2 games with double-digit receptions. He's going in the same neighborhood of guys like Mike Williams, DJ Moore, T. Higgins. T. Higgins had 4 100-plus yard receiving games last year alone, and he played 14 games, less than half of the entire career of Michael Pittman. And you can get this guy very similar ADPs. And one of his 100-yard receiving games was 194 yards. Like, the idea that Michael Pittman would be drafted anywhere close to somebody like that is honestly, to me, insane. And if you go look at the actual, first 2 years of Michael Pittman versus Brandon Ayuk, it's eerie how close they are in every single metric. Brandon Ayuk is available as wide receiver 40 right now. Michael Pittman, wide receiver 13. I'm 100% out. We just saw Matt Ryan get the best wide receiver prospect / tight end, whatever you want to call Pitts. And this guy barely got 1,100 yards. You can't tell me that you think that Michael Pittman is going to get more. Is Michael Pittman a better talent than Kyle Pitts as a receiver, as a pass catcher?
No,
you're asking the wrong person.
No, but I don't know how those two things are the same. I mean,
they're both good. They're both the target. They're both.
Kyle Pitts got the touchdowns, he would have been perfectly fine last season, and that would have been a really great wide receiver season if Michael Pittman had done the same. He just didn't get the touchdowns.
I mean, he had 6 touchdowns last year. That's plenty. I mean, plenty of guys had 6 touchdowns last year and were a lot more useful for fantasy.
Kyle Pitts had a good tight end season.
I don't. Your arguments are all invalid because all the people you listed off were going before him. T. Higgins like 5 picks beforehand, so it's not close to me. DJ Moore,
DJ Moore's going after him.
DJ Moore, we've already talked about on this podcast, and he's not doing better than he's ever done. And Pittman has the chance to do better than he's ever done, which is 1 year of actual starting.
He hasn't done very good. When you don't do very good, you have plenty of opportunities to do.
1,100 yards with, and this is my.
Has he played with Matt Ryan? That's the curious part. Has he played with Matt Ryan in a game before? No. Okay. Well, then we don't know because Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz isn't a good quarterback.
Do you not think that wide receiver 13 off the board is a little rich? Do you guys actually think that's justified? I just want to
I do.
I absolutely do.
Okay.
I'm not saying reach for him. I'm not saying draft him ahead of the other people. I'm
draft Michael Pittman at his wide receiver 13 ADP.
100%. I'm
on a regular basis.
Yep. Yeah. Why would you take DJ Moore before him? I don't want to slander my guy, but why? Like you just mentioned DJ Moore. Why would you take DJ Moore before Michael Pittman?
I didn't say I would take him before him. I would rather.
Why did you comp them to? Like, why did you bring?
Well, I mean, they're in that same area. Well, I would never take Michael Pittman. I would always take these other. I don't want to. Like, you guys, you laid out your arguments for why you like him as a sleeper. I think a guy that had 1,062 yards in his career as a high point is as a wide receiver 13, just a little bit high.
Okay, you keep saying like you're adding these years together. Like he was a starter his rookie year. He was a rookie. He came in second year with Carson Wentz, who was pretty inaccurate. He had 130 targets and only caught 90 of them. Okay. Sure, a lot of them were uncatchable. So anyway, let's get into my next guy before we argue this to death. Draft yourself some Michael Pittman. Don't listen.
As soon as I saw Michael Pittman, I knew this was going to happen.
He's the defensive guy. Michael Pittman gets no recognition. You're going to be happy with him. All right. Speaking of vacated targets, let's get into my next guy, A.J. Dillon. Green Bay's receiving core is, to put it lightly, in shambles right now. There's some new guys on the team, but Devontae Adams is departed, and that's leaving 150-plus targets up for grabs. And while plenty of these should go to the quite possibly worst wide receiver core in the NFL right now, a lot, in my opinion, if not the majority, will go to Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Speaking of Aaron Jones, let's get into him real quick. The Packers basically made a concerted effort last year to not use Aaron Jones last year as much as possible. I kept thinking it was for the playoffs. It really wasn't. It's basically for Dillon's imminent takeover. But let's put a pause on that talk for a moment, and let's get into the receiving core. We have Sammy one-game Watkins. So he has had one season of more than 90 targets in the last 5 years, and that was 3 years ago, I believe, and only caught about 50 of them. So go ahead and scratch that. Randall Old Man Cobbs, who has had one good season in the last 6, and that wasn't even with Rodgers, who he played with 2 of 5 and 6 years ago. And he's good for, 40 targets. We got Romeo Dubes and Christian Watson. Both have chances, but both are rookies and could have good years with Rodgers, but I'm not trusting them enough to. And the latter, Watson, is starting off already on the PUP list, not practicing with Rodgers, which is what he needs to be. So we'll give him 80-ish targets together. And don't worry, I add some later. Alan Lazard, who everyone is projecting to be the best wide receiver on the team, has been averaging 500 yards per season at this point on 50 targets. Even though every time I ask a Packers fan about this receiving core, they say, well, we have Sammy Watkins. So personally, even fans aren't expecting much from Lazard here. And then let's not forget about Robert Tonyan, who had one good year with 50 catches and I believe like 11 touchdowns ridiculously. But the other two were 30 and 15, and the former was lost to injury. But that's catches throughout a year. So let's go ahead and give him 60 targets just to be nice. That makes 280 targets for the receiving core. And you're thinking, wow, I thought Rodgers threw the ball a lot more than that. You would be right. Rodgers throws the ball about 500, 600 times a year. So right now with my weird, terrible, probably math, I've never been good in the math subject. That shows around a whopping like 300 available targets for Rodgers. And yeah, I'm sure someone, I don't know who, after listing all of those people you're excited about, will get some more targets. So let's subtract 100 from the available targets. That's still 200 targets that, in my opinion, are mostly going to the running backs. So sorry about the roundabout way of talking about this terrible receiving core. But I just wanted to put this into layman's terms for you. This all makes Dillon the most valuable second running back on any team. Taking over Kareem Hunt's role that he's had for the last couple seasons, Dillon isn't a traditional pass-catching running back. He's 6 foot, 247 compared to Jones's 5'9", 208. But last year, he made every single one of his catch count. He had 34 of 37 targets while still out-rushing Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones did have, I think, 50-ish catches. Do not quote me on that. I didn't look that one up. Dillon is currently going at running back 24 in the 6th round, depending on if you're in 10 or 12-man leagues. If Jones were to just go down, like get injured at all, he would step into one of the biggest roles that any running back could have other than maybe Jonathan Taylor, while already knowing what it's like to be heavily involved. To me, A.J. Dillon to the moon. Make the trade if you can in Dynasty and draft him when the time feels right. You got plenty of time. You got 6 rounds to be like, oh, I think it's A.J. Dillon time. So, gentlemen, what are we thinking about A.J. Dillon? Let's let Jordan go first because I feel like he hates everything I say so far.
I don't hate everything you say. I like A.J. Dillon. I mean, as your running back 2, if he does get like a 50-50 split like people are talking, and even if he doesn't necessarily do that in games, we know that Aaron Jones, he's a very efficient, explosive guy, but they'll pull him out sometimes and they'll give, Aaron or Dillon the chance to tote the ball. And he's shown he can be good. So there's definitely upside to be had with him. I like drafting him, and I have him in a couple of dynasty leagues. I think this time next year, he's going to be a very valuable dynasty asset, even if it's just for a 1 or 2 year window, because I think he's going to take over as their primary back eventually, essentially. So.
All right. So I kind of talked about this with me and Joe did a slight underdog show, stacks last week. And I kind of was talking about how I think the Green Bay Packers should use their own offense. And I think that they should do the Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb situation in Green Bay. I think A.J. Dillon should be the Nick Chubb role, and they should put Aaron Jones in the Kareem Hunt role and just roll with both backs out there, both used very often and both very fantasy relevant all the time. I think that that's how they should do it because this receiving core is not up to par. Alan Lazard is fine, but he's not a good wide receiver 1. I think their wide receiver 1 is still Aaron Jones in the backfield currently. I think that he's going to see most of the targets, and I don't know how else they're going to figure that out. Robert Tonyan will be good as a tight end. If Watson ever gets to camp, sure, maybe Christian Watson will be something, but I don't have high hopes because he simply is not there gaining reps with Rodgers right now, which is concerning. And then Romeo Doubs, who could be a player for them coming out of Nevada, he's a rookie and he's like a 5th round wide receiver. So I think this year is a great year to have AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. I think they're both draftable. And I think if you took both of them on your team, they're both going to be relevant. You won't have to do this whole, well, should I play this one this week? Should I play this one? I think you play both of them at the same time. And I think they're both going to have massive fantasy success this year. So I think AJ Dillon's a perfect player to have on this list.
I think the biggest thing about AJ Dillon is the fact that he can catch balls. He didn't see an expanded amount of targets, but at the same time, this man is a beast and a pinball. And when they start using him on the goal line, I would not be surprised because I don't think Rodgers doesn't have Devontae Adams anymore. So I don't think he's really comfortable throwing jump balls to Christian Watson and Sammy Watkins. Obviously, I imagine Tanyan will get his touchdowns for sure, but at the same time, AJ Dillon just makes so much sense to get the rushing touchdowns already. So let's put 10 on the board there, and then let's put some pass catching in there as well to the vacated targets. I think AJ Dillon's a no-brainer in redraft this year. And then, obviously in Dynasty, I think like Jordan said, we're getting a couple years out of him at the very least. But Aaron Jones has done a pretty decent job as the Green Bay running back, and that was without them running the ball heavily, which, as Billy alluded to, probably going to be the case this year. So huge fan. This man can just jump up some numbers, and I think he's going to. So.
All right, we are going to play a quick promo for the Underdog Fantasy platform. Use code IDPArmy. Use the link in the description. Come play Underdog Fantasy with us. The best place to play best ball. They have tournaments. They have all kinds of sports. TGA. They have MLB, NBA, etc. So hop on there. You can draft with us like today, like right now. Hey, IDP Army. Hope you guys and gals are enjoying the episode we have for you today. But we want to take a little break and tell you about our partners at Underdog Fantasy. Use the link in the description or the code IDPArmy when you sign up. They're going to give you a deposit match bonus of up to $100, and you can play all kinds of sports on Underdog Fantasy, not just NFL. They have NFL, NBA, MMA, PGA. They have everything. If you're into any sport, they generally have something there for you. Go check them out. Tell them we sent you. Go sign up for the Best Ball Mania 3 draft. That is their giant draft that they have every year. Best Ball draft. The winner of that this year is going to win $1 million. The total prize pool is $10 million. We've got content on the channel for it. We have episodes of the podcast for it. We have rankings for it. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. That's where we play best ball. Hopefully we will see you in a draft. Thanks, and now back to the show. All right, y'all. We appreciate you, everybody that has signed up with our promo code, everybody that's in leagues with us. If you're going to be out in Canton with us, we're going to be doing some live drafts out there at the Fantasy Football Expo. Come by our table, our booth, draft with us, hang out with us, chat with us. But I'm going to hit you all with the last sleepers here. This one is probably going to be kind of surprising to people because he's getting a lot of hate. But I am in on Antonio Gibson this year, ADP 74, running back 25. All Antonio Gibson did last year in 2021 was touch the ball 300 times. That was the 4th most in the league. He also caught 42 passes. That was more than Jonathan Taylor, more than Dalvin Cook, the same number of passes as Joe Mixon. All right, he proved himself to be a competent pass catcher, and that was what had people so excited about him last year when I was a little bit out on him. He was going, as I believe, running back 12 last season. I thought that was a little rich given the overall offense that the Washington Commanders had. But he went out this year, and he did what most people projected him to do. He touched the ball a lot. He caught a bunch of passes. He actually caught more than he had the year before. And right now he's being drafted as running back 25. You can get him as a running back 3, even though he basically went out and kind of proved people wrong. So I've been wondering what it is about him that makes people not really comfortable with him, especially when players that got out similar carries and touches as him are going as locked and loaded RB1s. And given that he proved he could be a workhorse, even though he did struggle with injury last year. We had the foot problem. I think he had a shoulder issue too at one point, but he went out there and he touched the ball and he was a workhorse. They drafted a 3rd-round running back, Brian Robinson, I believe, and now everybody's out on this guy. A guy that people pushed up into the running back 1 conversation last year is now being pushed into the running back 3 conversation. I don't understand it. The only thing I can think about is maybe it was because he had a very, very, very low touchdown total given the number of touches he had last year. His touchdown total was 7 on the ground and then 3 receiving. Not terrible, 10 overall, but for as many touches as he had, other players in that similar area, I mean, they were getting 18 to 20. So it didn't feel quite the same, even though the volume was there. And another thing I noticed was he had a very uncharacteristic 6 fumbles last year. Lost several of those, so that's gonna cost you some fantasy points there as well. So not a lot of touchdowns, giving yourself some negative plays with the fumbles and then fumbles lost. I don't think people really are able to zoom out and realize that Antonio Gibson did what we wanted him to do last year, and for whatever reason, we are choosing not to acknowledge it and choosing to suppress it. And I need to know why. So he's one of my favorite league winner type players. I think we just saw Jonathan Taylor, the other guy who touched the ball, one of the only players that touched the ball more than him, just played with Carson Wentz. Yeah, the offensive line was different, whatever. But the offense and the team has shown that they've been willing to give him the ball. So I don't understand how I'm drafting him everywhere I can at running back 25.
Before Billy gets a chance to speak, because he's going to be like, well, Brian Robinson, and then they got McKissick. And yeah, they do have McKissick. They do have him there. They have Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson is a safety blanket because they saw what happened last year when McKissick went down. That was such a big part of their passing offense because they didn't have many receivers. De'Ami Brown was garbage. Curtis Samuel died or something. There was Terry McLaurin, but he can't shoulder it all. And then Logan Thomas went down too. So listen, Antonio Gibson has been running back 11 in his rookie year and running back 10 in his sophomore year. And I don't know what respect he deserves to be running back 25. It makes no sense. I'm all in on Antonio Gibson. I think you're getting him at his discount. This is the perfect person to go get. As much as I want to disagree with Jordan because he's just a Jordan. This is going on YouTube, man. I'm trying to be nice. All right. But in general, Antonio Gibson does not deserve the disrespect he gets. He's had 11 and 10 touchdowns his first 2 years. This man deserves way more respect than he's given. Even if somehow Washington wants Brian Robinson to be there, who slipped to like the 4th round, stop thinking that's whatever. Pick a number, Bill. I'll let you talk in a second. And Antonio Gibson deserves a little bit of respect. And I'm not trying to draw comparisons to Jonathan Taylor because nobody is Jonathan Taylor. But once again, Carson Wentz is the perfect quarterback to have a good running back game with, and they have it with Antonio Gibson. And this man shoulders a lot for the guys. Like Jordan said, 258 touches. Yeah, that was behind a terrible offensive line and an even more decrepit offense in general. So Taylor Heineke, whatever his name is, not even close to what Carson Wentz even is, which is sad enough as it is. I'm not trying to be mean to him, but Antonio Gibson to the moon, all about him. He's going to be in that. I don't know if I'm going to say he's going to be running back 1 or running back 5, but he can easily be right back in that running back 11, 10 spot, maybe even above that. Go ahead, Bill. Do your thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, I appreciate you trying to do the 8 Mile style of trying to cut out the knees of the arguments before I get to them. I do appreciate that style. But yes, they drafted Brian Robinson in 3rd round. He is going to be in there probably taking goal line work. They signed J.D. McKissick back, which if J.D. McKissick had gone to the Bills, like everyone in the entire situation thought was going to happen, except for Washington apparently, then this would all be fine. And Antonio Gibson's ADP should be higher. But with the fact that they've been talking about it, Washington that is, talking like it's going to be a committee this year, just scares the bejesus out of everyone that is going to draft him high. So while I think he is going to be the preferred back in Washington, I think that he is just going to be the top of the committee, just the leader of the committee, if you will.
All right, we'll see. Moving on to the next player. I also love my man, Devin Singletary. He's a little bit lower down the list for me. Underdog ADP 101, running back 35. And what I love about Devin Singletary is that he keeps succeeding and people kind of just keep sleeping on him. I mean, he's had so many running backs there with him, including Frank Gore, including Matt Breida, including PFF's darling, Zach Moss. Was LaShawn McCoy there with him too? I don't know. Maybe not that far back. There's been other guys there as well. He's played with some good. Duke Johnson is there right now. Isn't there a major fantasy analyst who stands for Duke Johnson? Isn't he one of the best running backs in the league? Okay, but you know what I'm saying? So Devin Singletary keeps popping up. He flashed, in my opinion, since coming into the league. But the team never really trusted him or gave him a workhorse role. I never really understood why, because he looked good to me. But at the end of last season, 2021, the end of the year, the last 7 weeks, Devin Singletary was averaging 17 touches a game. All right. And he also scored 6 touchdowns during that time, which was a really solid number. And they were actually giving him the ball near the goal line. I don't know if they were maybe going out of their way to protect Josh Allen a little bit more, but I do remember him getting attempts that I thought earlier in the season he wasn't getting. But that's indicative of everything I'm saying. He was getting more attention in the offense, one of the best offenses in the league. All right. In those last 7 games, he averaged 73% of the offensive snaps. That is the literal walking, breathing definition of a bell cow running back. Granted, it was only the last 7 weeks, but I think James Cook is a fine running back. But we saw Devin Singletary really get his true first opportunity to be that guy, and he was that guy last year. And it seemed like the Bills were willing to give him that opportunity as he kept being successful. And I think they started to actually use him according to some of his skill set. He's very efficient. He can catch passes. I believe he caught 42 passes this last year, something like that. It wasn't a bad number. People will try and tell you, yeah, he caught 40 passes this last year. That's only, what is that? It's only a handful less than it's only 2 less than Gibson. It's only 2 less than Joe Mixon, more than Dalvin Cook, players that we associate as pass catchers in the narratives, in the shows you may listen to, in the analysis that you may hear and read. You may hear things about Devin Singletary that would make you think that he was worthy of being drafted as running back 35, running back 4. I don't know if I buy it. Down the stretch of last season, I know he was getting a lot of attention. He was very, very good. I think he's a great league winner this year. Type of potential. You can flex him every week. Love him in underdog. And like I said, to me, the last 7 weeks are a microcosm of what the Bills can do if they hand him the ball and play him on 73% of snaps. And that was a successful running back 1 down the stretch. Devin Singletary, go get him.
League winner's tough for me for Singletary, but I will say he's a great sleeper, which I guess technically is the assignment here. So at 101, you can't do better than Devin Singletary. I mean, you can take the chance on James Cook. You can take the chance on Zach Moss. Follow that camp news that's going on.
RB4, just like this. I can't, like, as I'm even saying it, an RB4, and he's on the number 1 offense. And we have decided, right, that Josh Allen's the best quarterback. So I don't understand what he needs to let's just bump him into the running back 3 conversation. I
don't even care about that.
This is just some very strange energy for me. And I think that everybody watching this needs to take advantage of the fact that for whatever reason, there's a cognitive dissonance between what Devin Singletary is and what people want you to think he is.
Even without all that, the fact of the matter is he is still the lead back right now. And for him to be disrespected, to put him at 100th pick, to get him in the 9th round of fantasy drafts, you're like, I guess I'll take Devin Singletary. It's not even yes, there is some other people there. Yes, James Cook will probably be good in the future. But as of right now, he is a rookie running back who he's
never touched the ball in the NFL.
Career, who has never touched the ball in the NFL. Zach Moss, who's being hyped up for some reason in camp news right now. I'm all about getting Devin Singletary here. I'm not going to draft him where, Jordan wants him to be, but if he's going to sit right here for this entire offseason, and once we start getting into redraft leagues, I'm getting Devin Singletary on every single one of my teams. I'm not even excited about Devin Singletary. Yeah, those last 7 games are impressive to me. I'm a little worried about what's going to happen in the long run.
Look at these snap shares.
I'm not even talking about none of that. All that aside, he is the starting running back on one of the best football teams, as you've said. And to get him in the 9th round, it's very Leonard Fournette-esque last year, where Leonard Fournette and Rojo were like all back in the 9th round. And you're just like, oh, I guess I'll get Fournette. I didn't get Fournette, so it was really sad. I'm taking Singletary every time. Even if I miss on that, I don't miss anything. I miss a random.
Yeah, you miss a 10th round running back who's on the number 1 offense in the league, who broke out and was a top 3 running back down the stretch last season. That's what you're missing if you take him in the 10th round. It's unreal that he's available there. Anyway, I'm hyped up. Billy, what are your thoughts?
No, I was about to say, I'll let you 2 take it. No, I agree with what y'all have been saying. I think people, LOL. I don't know who's scared by this, but I think people are scared that Josh Allen's going to take the rushing touchdowns at the goal line, and people are worried that Isaiah Spiller's going to come in and mean anything more than maybe a pass catching back out of the backfield. James Cook, my bad. That's going to be somebody to worry about, which he's not. I mean, James Cook was a fine athlete at Florida State, but he split carries there and wasn't the lead back there. So that should tell you what you need to know. Well, Georgia. I don't know why I said Florida State. Anywho,
I was going to correct you. I knew that wasn't right.
I know I corrected my brain.
Aren't you our college analyst, Billy? What the?
Yeah, exactly. I got a lot of things floating around. Anywho, there's nothing to worry about here. I don't know what the worry is about Devin Singletary. What he did in the last 7 games was exactly what I think you're going to get to begin the season. I think that you should be in on Devin Singletary, and I do think he could be the guy, because here's the thing. Josh Allen does not need to be rushing the ball into the end zone, taking those hits. Give it to Devin Singletary and send him in. Like, that is all that we need to be doing here. I know that Josh Allen likes to take the runs, and I get it. Doesn't need to be doing it in the game, though. If he wants to stay healthy for the entire season, he needs to be trusting this running back. Maybe they don't trust him, but I think based on exactly what you're seeing on the screen right now, those last 7 games on a playoff stretch, this should be your guy. I think Devin Singletary is a perfect person to put on this list because he very well could boost himself up way higher than what his ADP is right now.
Listen, even if he doesn't, he's worth the chance. That's my thing. And this isn't even against Devin Singletary. It's just like, even if he fails and doesn't live up to this, and you're like, oh yeah, I told you Devin Singletary wasn't any good. You got him in the 9th round. You already have a full fucking team at that point. Like,
yeah.
All right, sorry, I'm done.
Great. People are going to take like Ramondre Stevenson over him, and it's going to be ridiculous. Ridiculous.
People. What is it that Bill Murray says in Groundhog Day? He's like, people eat blood sausage too. He's like, people are fucking morons.
Yep. Sure.
Great movie. Best movie, one of the top 3 movies ever made. Groundhog Day. Go watch it.
Still great.
All right, I'm gonna finish this off here with another Bills player. This is crazy that you can get these guys from the number 1 offense so late, but I am in on Dawson Knox, currently the tight end 9. I'm gonna explain why I'm in on him to you in a little story. All right, so I like late round tight end drafting, and last year, 2021, Mark Andrews, he was coming, or in 2021, Mark Andrews, he finished, he was ranked the 6th tight end off the board, tight end 9 or 6. He ended up finishing as tight end 1. And the season he had before that was very similar to the one Dawson Knox just had. He had 88 targets, 58 receptions, 701 yards, 7 touchdowns, and played 14 games. Finishes the tight end 5. Dawson Knox this last year finished as the tight end 8. All right, had 49 receptions, pretty similar, 587 yards, pretty similar, and 9 touchdowns. Also, played 14 games, but he effectively played 13 games because he had 1 game that he played and he didn't score anything. And he missed 2 games this season. He finished as the tight end 8 in points per game and overall. And he finished just 5 points shy of finishing as the number 5 tight end on the season. Now, why do I tie this back to Mark Andrews? Because 2 years ago, when Mark Andrews was coming off this similar season, everybody said Rashad Bateman's going to take all the targets. There's no way that an awesome tight end who's been ascending year over year is going to just keep ascending. For whatever reason, people didn't want it to happen. It didn't fit the narrative that they'd built. Similar things are happening right now with Dawson Knox. This is a guy who caught, I think, like 40 passes in college. This year, he caught 49 receptions in the NFL in 13 games as a third-year tight end. And there's competition for targets on the Bills. They didn't have to throw him the ball. They gave him 9 touchdowns. They didn't have to target him, to get him those kinds of targets down near the red zone. They did. All right. And like I said, he was 5 points away from finishing as tight end 5 while effectively playing 3 fewer games than every other player that finished ahead of him this year. You can get this guy as tight end 9. He's done nothing but get better as he's been in the league. I love him right now. I love him. It's him and Zach Ertz for me as late round tight ends. I think the upside is just completely and totally unacknowledged with him. And it's just because everything is run by data and nobody can really stomach the idea that maybe something won't go the way that everyone else says it will. For example, Rashad Bateman. And again, to even emphasize on Mark Andrews, he did that too while Hollywood Brown had his best season of his career. And his all-pro MVP quarterback was gone. So when everything went the way that everyone would say it would go the opposite, Mark Andrews didn't just ascend, he doubled everything he did. 1,300 receiving yards this last year. He had 153 targets, 107 receptions, 9 touchdowns, didn't double those. But even though everything went the way that you would think it would take it the opposite, he went the other way. Why? Because he's Mark Andrews. He's a good damn player. We know that. You saw that for the 3 years previously. Why can't we explore the idea that Dawson Knox might be a sleeping giant?
As much as I like Dawson Knox, I want to say that, and I think he will get better and better, and I think that he is going to continue to get better and better. I'm not going to say that, oh, this is the pick here. There are plenty of tight ends you can get late. My biggest thing about Dawson Knox is he's the biggest target on that team, and so that's naturally why he's going to get those red zone targets. So I think basically you're going to replicate this season, basically. Maybe a little bit more yards, maybe some more touchdowns. I think you're still getting – the one good thing about him is you're not taking a chance on him. I think he's the safest tight end bet because even at the top, you're still not getting – if you draft Travis Kelce and he – I mean, that's not a good example. You draft Mark Andrews and he doesn't do what he did last year, you're not getting tight end number 2. If you're drafting Dawson Knox, you're getting at least tight end number 8. That's the thing. He's one of the most consistent targets, and I think that's why I'm in agreement with you. I don't think he's going to be Mark Andrews this year. I think that's something that could happen in the future. Basically, my logic on Dawson Knox is he's getting better. His first 2 years were meh, and his last year was phenomenal. I'm just not ready to be like, he had a tight end 7 year. He's going to jump to tight end 4 now or tight end 2. I think what's going to happen is,
thing. Like I just said, he was 5 points from being this last year. Literally 5 half PPR points. That's like 2 catches. And he missed 3 games.
I'm telling you are going to get exactly what you're seeing on that board right now. You're going to get Dawson.
No, you're
Knox
right. You're right. I'm just, yeah.
I know how excited you are, but I'm saying the touchdowns could go up or the yardage could go up, but he's not really the favorite target on the team. And like we talked about, touchdowns still running back. And then there's plenty of running backs.
See, this is why I need to get in here because this is wrong. The number 2 targeted person on the Bills last year, gone. Number 3 targeted person on the Bills last year, gone. That's over 180 targets that are sacrificed up into the air.
Also,
and sure, Gabe Davis is going to get some.
There's also multiple tight ends on the team now too. I'm just
okay. The best one on the team. I mean, there's multiple tight ends on every team. Does that make Travis Kelce scared that Blake Bell's on the team? No. Why would that scare him? Best one on the team.
Go ahead, Bill.
Dawson Knox. No, he should be the 3rd highest targeted person on the team this coming season. Should put him at 80 to 90 targets. I could even see him getting to 100 because I don't trust any of the lower guys down the totem pole. Like a lot of other fantasy analysts seem to think that, oh, well, this person's the next Cole Beasley. Oh, this person's the next Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley had 112 targets last year. That's factual.
While not being vaccinated to COVID.
That's also factual. That's not going to be replicated by Jamison Crowder. It's not going to happen. I understand the thought process there, but it's not. Yes, Josh.
Who wants to take the fireball bet? I will say Dawson Knox under tight end 5.
I think he is going to finish as tight end 5, so I'll take that bet for sure.
Yeah, I'll take 5.
Why not? Do it. Take 5, man.
Here's the thing. Who is he paired with? Oh, yeah, the best quarterback in the league. What is the target share that's there ahead of him? It's going to be Stephon Diggs, who's probably not going to get any more targets than he did last year.
And he took 3 zeros last year. 3 zeros, and he still finished as tight end 8. And that's in points per game, too, with zeros.
People are making the same arguments for against Dawson Knox now that they made against for Mike Gesicki for the
people
Dolphins.
Love Mike Gesicki for some reason.
They really do. And I guarantee people are going to draft Gesicki ahead of Knox, and it's ridiculous.
Look at that snap share for a tight end, too. I mean, he does not leave the field.
No, and they did draft one, but I don't think it matters.
It drafted one, and they got O.J. Howard. I'm telling you, I'm not saying he's not going to do
O.J. Howard was not a threat to anyone down in Tampa. He won't be a threat to Dawson Knox.
Look at this. Look at this, boys. Added from waivers. Who would do a thing like that?
I actually dropped him for Brian Burns. You'd be happy about that.
Looky there. Oh, Josh Hall dropped him.
Hey, you did drop him for
fun fact.
No, moron.
No, dude, honestly, I'll take Brian Burns all day. I'm not upset about this.
Yeah, you keep your Brian Burns.
I actually, fun fact, my alarm is still Brian Burns for Knox at 2:00 in the morning. That was my original alarm, except I spelled Knox no, and it's been set as that since then, 3 years ago or 2 years ago, whenever it was.
That's hilarious.
Also, it hurts a little bit, but
The fun fact of Dawson Knox played with A.J. Brown and DK Metcalf in college. Same team, all at the same time. Try playing on that wide receiver.
Good.
Try playing on that wide receiver core. It was
he still managed to get 50 targets somehow.
That team sucked, but he was on a very talented roster. Okay, well, that's enough sleeper talk. We are going to we were asked in the IDP Alpha chat on Twitter to rediscuss rookies. If any of you out there want to get in on that chat, it's popping almost every day. Every day there's at least some breakdown of the news. You can ask us questions about lineup stuff throughout the season. You can ask us about ad drops. We can review your roster, whatever. It's the best way to contact us. Contact at 50 Shades of Drunk below me on Twitter, and he will get you added to that chat so that we can get that in there. But anyway, yes, this was a listener suggestion that we go back over the rookies in August, right before the drafts, because we did a whole bunch of draft talk, which went over really well. And now we're going to revisit the rookies really quickly. So I've got a list here, and I'll just get some comments from the guys after. Maybe they've got some other opinions as well. So this is my good wide receivers. Treylon Burks does not appear to actually be an issue with asthma as people were thinking in rookie minicamp. He looks good to go. He's been fine in training camp thus far. I think that was a whole lot of camp news. Yes, Josh.
Can I already talk on your first point?
Sure, go ahead.
I think Treylon Burks is no longer the number 3 if you were to do a rookie draft today, in my opinion. Treylon Burks, I think everyone was super excited, and I would have done it as well. I probably might have had the conversation of doing it as number 2, the replacement of A.J. Brown. But looking back on it, stats-wise, Tannehill is dog. So personally, I would bump Garrett Wilson or Ken Walker above Treylon Burks at this point. I think obviously he's still high up there and there's still a chance, but he is not A.J. Brown. He is a chance to replicate what A.J. Brown has done.
Yes. Mentioning Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson has looked fantastic in camp so far. He looks like the alpha dog there. I think Elijah Moore is going to be in trouble for targets. I think it's going to end up being Garrett Wilson as the top dog there, with Elijah Moore being the wide receiver 2. Just based on the little small smidge of camp that I've seen, it looks like Garrett Wilson's the real deal. Speaking of real deals, Drake London is absolutely the real deal in Atlanta. I still think he'll be behind Pitts in targets for that team, but Drake London is 1,000% exactly what he was billed to be for Atlanta, and to be the wide receiver 1 overall as he was taken. I think you've got a guy. I think he's earned his spot on the team. Okay, 3 more in the good category. One is George Pickens for Pittsburgh. With Deontay Johnson currently holding out still with contract, you've seen a ton of George Pickens, and it looks like we found the replacement for Deontay Johnson already. George Pickens has made himself widely known to be very, as good as advertised in camp. So I think George Pickens in Dynasty right now, if you can still get him cheap, I would try to send out an offer. If not, you might get priced out going into the season, because it looks like George Pickens might be taking Deontay Johnson's role. Maybe not this year, but probably next year when Deontay Johnson wants to get paid. Steelers aren't going to do that because they never have. So George Pickens, a good pickup. All right, the last 2 I'm kind of not as sure about, but they just happen to be in good situations. Romeo Doubs is one of them for Green Bay. Christian Watson's been out with an injury, so that's shown a lot for Romeo Doubs. Seems to be okay in camp. I don't think he's spectacular, but he is somebody that if you're having, if you want a rookie late in your draft, he could be a guy to pick up and put in right away. And then Alex Pierce appears to be the wide receiver 2 in Indianapolis over Paris Campbell. We're all still waiting for the Paris Campbell breakout, but it does not appear that it's going to happen this year, because I still think Alec Pierce is the guy. He's been practicing with the ones. Any comments?
No, I agree with everything you said. I do have a couple additions if I could.
Sure, go ahead.
Rachaad White I know that he might not be the guy this year, but he is the future in Tampa Bay. And I'm hoping that means Tom Brady stays for another year, because next year, Rachaad White, if not this year, is just going to go off. So he is worth every single piece of his ADP, and you could probably bump him up a couple picks and you'd be happy. Dameon Pierce, just happy about his, workload that he's probably going to get with Houston. Not excited about the team.
The depth chart's sad.
Yeah, I'm not excited about the team that he's playing on, but between Pierce and Cooks, that's pretty much all of the targets and carries that they're going to get. And then just a couple I want to talk about that kind of grew their ADP over the last few days, or weeks, months, whatever. We drafted so long ago, it feels like a year ago. Zamir White, Las Vegas appears to not be picking up Josh Jacobs' contract at the moment. So Zamir White can be a great addition, and there is no, Kenyon Drake is still there. So I think that's what scares people off of Zamir White is, they got 2 running backs. I need someone now. Zamir White's a great sleeper to grab in the second round. And then my absolute favorite, there's many more I'd want to talk about, but Tyrion Davis-Price is going currently in like the 3rd round. And the San Francisco 49ers do not know how to keep a running back for a second year. So even if you're just burning your 3rd round pick on him, I think he's worth it because every single year that seems to be the rookie running back. And it might be the guy they grabbed off of undrafted free agents like they did with.
Well, speaking of Tyrion Davis-Price, they have come out and said that he might be the short yardage back right off the bat. Like that might
Even
just
more
be
reason.
his role immediately, which should scare everyone that has Elijah Mitchell. That should just scare you right away that could possibly be happening. Tyler Algier could be the starter for Atlanta. Don't think Cordell Patterson's the future, so maybe you'll see a lot of him.
I got to disagree with you on that. Not the future. Obviously, I'm not saying that Cordell Patterson, older than me, is the future. But definitely want to say that he could be the guy for the majority of this year. Algier is the future, and it could be interesting. He should have a good workload. But if you're looking for someone right now, you're not getting Algier right now. Obviously, this is late 2nd, early 3rd.
Oh, definitely not. No, I'm saying in overall drafts.
Yeah, no, for sure.
I
would take him over Brian Robinson, in my opinion.
And then if you have Eckler, just make sure you grab Isaiah Spiller. It looks like he is for sure going to be the number 2 there. He's been practicing with the ones as well. Not any worry to Eckler. Eckler is fine. He's going to be the monster there. But if he gets hurt for any reason, Isaiah Spiller is probably going to be one of the top handcuffs to have this year, just based on the team he's on and just basic situation. Only 3. Okay, sorry. My bad.
I was just going to say, in my opinion, Isaiah Spiller is ranked a little too high. I know he's going to be good in the future. He was my 3rd running back coming out, so he did get bumped under some people. I just feel like some people have way better roles to the lead than him, even including Zamir White and Algier. So I'm not saying take them over Isaiah Spiller. I just think that Isaiah Spiller's price tag's a little high, but if he starts slipping in that 2nd round, that's when you start grabbing him. Do not waste your 1st round pick on him. Basically, I saw it too many times in the rookie draft.
All right. Obviously, we got to get to the bad. John Mechie has cancer, so that's going to take him out for this entire season. If you haven't done your rookie draft yet, you should still take him. He will, by all intents and purposes, be fine after this year. But if you need somebody to contribute right away, it won't be him. Christian Watson has not played yet at all in Green Bay. I think that always spells out bad things when you have a receiver that's not working with the quarterbacks in the room. That's just the chemistry, and especially with Aaron Rodgers, the way that he likes to sometimes just freestyle his abilities. It's never good when you don't have somebody in the room that can at least learn how to be on the same page. And Jahan Dotson just scares me a smidge because the depth chart ahead of him, it really seems like they're going to use them, including Curtis Samuel, before him, which is bizarre to me because they took him in the 1st round. If you take a player in the 1st round of the freaking draft, he better be on the field. And they said he could be a punt returner, but dog, that cannot be the main reason that he's on the field. He's got to be on the field. CeeDee Lamb returned kicks, but he also was the wide receiver 2 behind Amari. To have Dotson not even playing and only potentially doing punt returns, that's a scary proposition, Washington. I really hope that's not how you're actually going to use them.
Hopefully it's just camp news and they're just trying to.
I really hope so, because that's
reverse
scary
hype.
Shit. That's really scary.
My only note on rookies is I feel like people are a little bit too high on Sky Moore, especially on underdog. He's a very trendy pick, a very trendy player to back. He's a very trendy player to talk about and analyze.
Next Tyreek Hill.
Exactly. And it's just it's kind of crazy because, nobody wanted to believe Tyreek Hill the first few years, but it's not like MVS isn't there. It's not like Juju's not there. It's not like Mecole Hardman is not there. It's not like Travis Kelce's not there. So he has a lot that needs to kind of happen to even get on the field realistically. We can't just assume that he's going to play a lot. I think people are kind of just assuming he's going to beat all those guys, and we have no real indication that that's the case at all, especially when we're talking about even if they're not elite receivers, MVS and Mecole Hardman have serious NFL chops. I mean, Mecole Hardman's won a fucking Super Bowl. I mean, he returned a fucking kick in the Super Bowl, right? Like, that's part of the thing that jump-started the 49, like, them winning. So, like, these guys play NFL ball, okay? And I know Sky Moore might be great in your model and his little points per pounds of, kilograms of body, whatever, 5'10", blah, blah, blah. He's still a rookie wide receiver on a team that knows what they are and seems to know what they're doing. And he's the newest and youngest guy there. So I think that we need to just remember that, the upside, while it exists. Yeah. But I mean, it's going to take a little bit to get to that kind of realized upside for anybody. And I didn't even know who Sky Moore was until the fucking, a week before the draft, if I'm being honest. So it's like, he wasn't like a Jameson Williams. He wasn't like a Chris Olave type player. It's Sky Moore. I know who the fuck he was. And now people are trying to big brain him into every lineup they can on underdog. And I think it's kind of silly.
I'm going to talk one more time and then I'm going to shut up. You said Jameson Williams, go draft him at his ADP. I'm okay with you taking him before that, honestly. Big fan of him.
He'll be out 6 games, but when he comes
will be out some games, but this is dynasty we're talking, and Jameson Williams might just be the number 1 pick in this entire draft. So one thing I wanted to touch on before I shut up was tight ends. So your man, Trey McBride, I know you're excited about him. He's the best tight end in the draft, or was, until he got drafted in Arizona. Zach Ertz is not going anywhere for at least 2 years. So you are waiting on Trey McBride. So it's the Dawson Knox situation. Don't drop him for Brian Burns like I did. But then behind that, what my favorites are is Jelani Woods, Dulcich for Denver, and then
Cole Turner.
Tampa Bay. Nope. Cade Otton.
Oh, my bad.
Cade Otton.
Kyle Rudolph.
My apologies. Nope. Definitely not Kyle Rudolph. Cade Otton, I'm not saying he's going to come in and just be efficient right away. But if Tom Brady plays the second year, Cade Otton's going to probably have a chance, and you're getting him super late. Greg Dulcich and Jelani Woods both have a chance to jump in right away, and you're getting them significantly later than McBride, which you're waiting 2 years on. I mean, he might have a role, but that's if Ertz gets injured. That's
fair. Cole Turner's been, while Logan Thomas is coming back, he has been getting reps with Wentz in the first team. When Logan Thomas comes back, that's Logan Thomas's job. So, I mean, at the same time, you're going to have to wait probably to use him. But Cole Turner has been in there, and so and been available. So I hope that answers the question. We didn't mention Chris Olave. I'm kind of mid on him right now because when Michael Thomas comes back, I don't know what the hell that's going to look like.
Yes, so Michael Thomas comes back.
Exactly. That's another thing factoring in. I don't know what to do with Chris Olave right now because I still think Landry is above him on the target meter, and then I think Michael Thomas will be the number 1 when he comes back, if he comes back. So it's hard for me to speak on Chris Olave, even though he's looked okay in camp so far. So that's all we got in rookies. Quarterbacks, do not take a single quarterback. Desmond Ridder, if you're desperate, don't. Quarterbacks are nothing. Don't. They're fine being very late in drafts. Don't pay for any of those players. Okay, that's all we got for this week. Subscribe on YouTube if you can. Please follow on all podcasting services. Please rate, review, leave comments, leave any kind of feedback at all. Go to the YouTube page, cuss us out. I don't care. It's fine with me. I love reading that kind of stuff.
I hope you do.
Tell Joe that he with the dude with the hat doesn't know what he's talking about when he's talking about the Commanders. Because not only are you right, he doesn't know what he's talking about the Commanders. It's hilarious to read. The dude with the hat doesn't know what he's talking about. And if you also happen to be in Canton next week for the Fantasy Football Expo, please come visit us. We will be in the booth. I don't really know how the layout is set up, but I think we're kind of in the middle of the room.
You'll find us. You'll find
the IDP booth. You'll see us. You'll see us before we see you, I'm sure, but we'll see you. Just come find us. We'll be there. That's all I got. Josh, get us out of here.
Yeah, so once again, not Joe, even though Joe's outros really aren't even close to his intros. So I just want to let you guys know we appreciate you riding with us. Possums for life, and IDP Army, That's it.